think it's worth sort of going back to some of those memories. I asked you for some of your favorite calls over your time with FC Dallas, and the first one that you gave me, and we can go chronologically here, 2012, a late game winner from Ugo Ehimulu. So I'm going to go ahead and play these, and then we can sort of react to them afterwards.
Past the 3 minutes of stoppage time that was added at the end of the second half. FC Dallas is over an opportunity to rescue 3 points. Zach Lloyd plays it in. It's headed off by Ehimulu! Unbelievable! On the last kick of the game!
So why was that one that had to be in the top, 5 or 6 moments that you gave me, going back to your debut season in the booth?
Well, it was the first chance I ever had to call a moment like that, last kick of the game winner. That was, unfortunately, the shame of that was Ugo's, I think that was his last game. It was certainly his last goal, and I think it was his last game. I think that he had a concussion situation come up in training later that week, and it was serious enough that, it never got resolved, and he didn't play with the team anymore. So it's sad to see it in that regard. And then another, but, on the flip side, a happy moment. We were sitting there talking about our buddy Ian Joy. That was the first game Ian ever did with us. Of the handful of games he worked with us in 2012 was that game. But I look back at that fondly because it was the first chance to ever call a moment like that. And that obviously is going to stick with you. In your memory.
Hey, how about this, Mark? Because you're one of the guys that understands about the humanity of this business, and how crazy is it that both of those guys? I hadn't even seen that clip before you just played it, but Zach Lloyd to Ugo Ehimulu, both of those guys had their career ended early on concussions, and because Zach Lloyd last time he played was I'm pretty sure it was on the SMU field during the U.S. Open Cup match. Collision went down. He never played for FC Dallas again. He might have played like one match maybe for Atlanta or something when they picked him up. But anyway, just sort of a weird note there about not to bring the party down here, but always another one of those lessons. You always have to remember the human element of the whole thing. And I thought Mark always did such a good job of that.
Yeah, and the positive side of that is now actually Zach is back with the club, and he's coaching the U23 team who's playing in a new league. It's called the League for Clubs. So he's back involved with FC Dallas, and that's great to see. That team is actually flying. They're 4-0, and they're just killing everybody. A lot of the FC Dallas Academy products back from playing in college for the summer are doing a great job in that program. So shout out to Zach Lloyd back with the team, and he was involved at TST as well, which was a lot of fun to watch this week for those that were tuned in.
Thank you for the note from Garrett, by the way, real quick. Garrett said Ugo played 5 more games in his career after that. But yeah,
wow.
There was not very much in his career after that. And man, I've bumped into him a couple of times over the years, and such a first-class individual. I could go on and on about it, but I know we don't have a lot of time. But Ugo was one of the best, and it was great to see him have that moment because in that area of the club, man, Ugo was a really, really important player for the team.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I remember I was maybe, I'd say 2012, I was 12 years old, so I ran into him somewhere in that time frame at a Subway, and that was the first time I was ever starstruck. I was like, I may have been the only one in the Subway who knew who he was, but I was like, could we get a picture? I was like so timid. It was, and of course he was so gracious, but that's my Ugo Ehimulu memory. Moving on a couple years later, this one was the season opener in 2015, courtesy of El Super Raton Blas Perez.
Line at least make a service, no desperation need yet. But get the ball while you got some time.
This is Ulloa sending it in. Bingham picks out the punch. Oh, it's a chance here and headed in. Blas Perez deflected it in. A stoppage time winner.
Obviously, another great moment, another late goal, and this one to kick off the season against San Jose in 2015.
Yeah, it's fun. Look, stoppage time winners are always fun in this game. Steve and I had discussions about this. One of the things I like about that is, look, there's debate about this. There's no right or wrong way to do it. This is just in my humble opinion, and I believe that was Steve Jolly that I was working with on that particular broadcast.
Good memory. Great memory.
And Steve was always good about, whoever he was going to follow the lead of whoever was doing the broadcast at that point in time. But look, there are moments where the important thing is to let the pictures tell the story. I mean, it's great to have the call and everything like that, but I think one of the really important things in good TV play-by-play is you got to subjugate your ego at times and realize that television is a pictures industry. Yes, it's a word industry, of course, as well. But to let the dogpile celebration of the players and the fan celebration of what's going on tell a story for 20 or 30 seconds and let everybody kind of live in that moment, I think is really important. So, some people believe very strongly in that. Some people don't believe as strongly in that. And again, the beautiful thing about our business is there's no right or wrong answers. But I like that call because, we had sense enough on the broadcast to let the pictures tell the story there for a little while as well. And again, to the earlier point about that goal against New England back in 2012, who doesn't love a good stoppage time winner?
Absolutely, and I think we got some more late drama in the next one. This one reminded me of the way that the team has been playing this year, where they go 2 goals down and then they, sit up in the chair, lock in, and come back and create these dramatic moments late in games. And this one was courtesy of Tesho Akindele, 2018, and he brought the team back from a potential defeat at home against Atlanta United and turned it into a memorable win. Here we go.
Hydration break needed, but not second half. Oh, good little flick. Barrios from Rudy. And Tesho with it. Tesho, no! By Rudy. He backheeled through 2 defenders. And just like that, FC Dallas has equalized in the 86th minute, 2-2.
Minutes from Akindele. He hasn't had that many this year. As Atigo Mascara has come in and taken some of those minutes. This was a big appearance for him, and man, did he just make it pay off for the corner kick.
And that corner delivered in by Barrios. There are options there. And there's another option. It touches. And it's Rudy's. It's a goal. FC Dallas. It's Tesho. You said he scores important goals. You can't get any more important than that.
A lot of reaction. Who's going to get there first? Who just wants it a little bit more? Akindele's not in the play, then he gets into play. Just reacting first.
Went off Lorenowitz, and when it went off him, the reaction was then made by Tesho.
It looks like Alan Kelly's getting a quick little check. Make sure Tesho Akindele.
Well, there you go, the Tesho moment, the 2-goal comeback. That one's special, and that one, Steve's first entry into the Mark Followill top 5 here.
Hey, man, really good analysis as part of that, because that was exactly right. That Tesho, I mean, gosh, there's so much to say about a lot of these calls and moments and things like that. Tesho was somebody I really, really liked, and it's almost like he kind of was such a team guy, he did his career a bit of a disservice, because rather than focus on one position, he was like, well, I'll do whatever the team needs. If I need to be a second striker or a lead or a true number 9 or a winger, whatever I need to do, I'll do it. And that almost in some ways maybe hurt his development of being really good at one thing. It's good to be versatile and a jack of all trades, and he had an excellent MLS career, but maybe it could have even been better if he had been zeroed in on one thing. So it's fun to see that moment of success. The things that stand out about that to me are, that was Atlanta United's cup year. So if you go back to, that's a July 4th game. Look, no matter who the caliber of opponent is, let's face it, guys, you don't win very many games when you're down a goal and you're well past the 80th minute. So not only did Dallas rescue a result, but they turned the game around in 2 minutes, basically, and went from losing a big game to winning a big game. And as Steve, as you know, Atlanta United, they were a damn hard team to beat that year, obviously, because that was their cup-winning season, and Joseph Martinez, among others, had such a great year. Did my eyesight deceive me there? Was that a great near-post run on that corner kick by Roland Lamar? He got the first flick, which started, that was him, and then obviously I think we mentioned Jeff Lorenowitz in the defending, and he couldn't clear it, and Matt Hedges was obviously in there reacting to it, and it was just a mad scramble, and Tesho got to it. But I believe the one thing that I totally forgot about there was that on the corner kick delivery, I think Roland Lamar had a very nice near-post run, that created, like, he got one of the first touches, or at least he's there. Somebody, maybe Aruti is there as well, but there were two different players there who make a near post run, and I think that blast from the past, Roland Lamont was part of that.
Hey, Mark, the quick story you told about Tesho, I know we're going to talk about Apple a little later, and I think Apple, the broadcast, has brought something, and I think the pictures are great. But it does sort of underscore, the local broadcast. I think the story you just told about Tesho Akindele, we had that conversation plenty of times about how he subjugated himself for the team in that way, and how Oscar, back then, Oscar really trusted him in a lot of different roles and how important that was. And I think those little things got a little lost because, as many of good broadcast crews as there are out there in the Apple gang, that's the kind of thing that's the depth of knowledge that they're probably not going to have about, the guy that, let's face it, was, 14, 15, 16 on the roster, number, as far as all the way down. So anyway, I just think that got lost just a little bit because we did have so many good conversations about Tesho and that particular aspect.
And I had a conversation with Derek Ray about this, and what Derek was telling me came from Ian Dark in their conversation. So these are two guys who are
some good advice. Here we go.
Preeminent people at the top of the list in their business.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, when you're talking about game prep and knowing things about the teams, and Derek said, obviously, I think if you follow Derek Ray on social media, you know what his prep looks like, and it's encyclopedic, to say the least. But Derek said to me one time, he goes, I was talking about this with Ian Dark, and Ian said, you can't know everything. And even when you're the local broadcaster, you can't know everything. But yeah, to your point, there's obviously greater challenges when you're coming in. And, look, it's always great on these Apple broadcasts when you get repeat teams over the course of time, because it's just like my initial comment about it, building up a savings bank or external hard drive, as Ryan likes to refer to it. But, I love the reason that those calls are at the top of my list is because that was a very fun night. Again, the circumstances of the moment. I love Tesho, and him scoring twice is great, but to beat Atlanta United that year in that way was a great win, and will go down as one of my favorites in my time with FC Dallas.
And to go from one of the unsung heroes of the club's history to one of the biggest stars that we ever had in Ricardo Pepi, this was him getting his start for FC Dallas and scoring his first ever goal against Montreal back in 2020.
There were runners at the back post. The clearance got as far as Cannon. Barrios slides it in front. It's off Madrasic, and it's in! The goal is scored by Ricardo Pepi! They've done it to Montreal again! And what a moment for the 17-year-old!
To try to find the winner. Again, it's Michael Barrios playing a nice little ball for Zdeněk Andrasic. I think he was trying to score that one, but it doesn't matter. Pops up, lands at the right foot of Ricardo Pepi. Young man knows what to do with it.
He did score 11 goals between regular season and postseason.
Sorry, you got cut off there, but to call such a special goal for a player who went on to do so much and continues to be a rising star for U.S. soccer now playing at PSV, that is one to definitely to earmark for something like this in the top five.
Man, Ryan, I didn't know that I picked out two goals for this, where Maxi Urruti had a back heel to set up Tesho, and that wasn't necessarily a back heel there by the Cobra. It kind of was, though. I mean, it was an.
He was trying something.
Maybe it was a mishit or something like that. I don't know, but it was. We certainly had some interesting setups for some of these goals when you go back and watch the highlights that I totally had forgotten about. To your point, I mean, you brought up part of what makes that goal special, Ryan, is obviously Ricardo Pepi, and the other things that stand out to me. Again, who doesn't love a good stoppage time winner, or in this case, equalizer? That was a game that was very frustrating. Maxi Urruti had come back and scored against Dallas, and to his credit, as most good players and most classy players do, he didn't celebrate against his old team. But that was a game that, man, I don't know how you were feeling in the last moments of it, Steve, but I was really discouraged because it's like, well, damn it, they're going to lose a home game here to Montreal in the second game of the season. This is a bad sign to start the year to lose a game like this. So they salvaged something, and, they always had a history because they did it the year before. Remember, they were down 3-0 at Montreal the season before, and Cobra, Zdenek Andrasic, was a part of a big comeback when they salvaged a 3-3 result. I believe Ryan Hollings had the equalizer in that game. So to salvage something was great out of that, because I was feeling at that moment, I was like, man, they're gonna lose this thing to Montreal. This is a bad loss. And then, of course, the other thing that we didn't know in the moment is the world was about to shut down. That was the other thing. I mean, that goal happened March 7th, 2020. This is my goofy memory. I don't even, I didn't need to look that up. It's just stuck in here. You wear
encyclopedia,
your
as you said.
Nothing falls out. But yeah, to have that, to score that goal, and that's kind of your last FC Dallas memory for about 3 or 4 months as the world shuts down was something that I look back on, and fondly isn't necessarily the right way to say it because that was such a weird time in all of our lives. But that was a great result that particular day, that's for sure. And obviously it was, a player who means a lot to the club. And Ricardo Pepi is a homegrown who's gone on to so many great things, but obviously has been very invested in staying. And, he's come back to many games and still obviously has many, many good feelings in his heart for the club.
For sure. And I'd love to hear from both of you, honestly, about sort of, Pepi coming up, Paxton coming up, Jesus coming up. When did you start to hear about these names and whispers that, okay, they might be ready for the first team? Because obviously at that time, Pepi had come through North Texas, but before that with Jesus and Paxton, there was no North Texas. So they were kind of making this big jump up from the academy to the first team. Just in that era, it seemed like it worked a little bit different for these players trying to break through into the first team. And obviously, they've gone on to have so much success. That must have been, an exciting one to finally get that moment. I'm pretty sure you called Jesus' first goal as well for the club.
Yeah, against Real Salt Lake in a rout, I think 6-2 back in 2017. From my perspective, you knew about Jesus because he was David Ferreira's son. So, he had kind of some, his reputation sort of preceded him in that regard. I know in my own case, like I knew about Paxton when the club signed him to a homegrown player contract. Because to your point, just information wasn't at your fingertips in the same way. And look, we were already well into social media in that era, but still, there was still not, I don't think that sort of information and that sort of depth of analysis, scouting, reporting about that level of the club, or any level of the club, and, for that matter, really existed yet. So, knew about Jesus because obviously of his father's connection, but Paxton, I knew about him when the news came out that they were signing him to a homegrown contract.
Mark, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were also at the press conference where Ricardo Pepi signed for North Texas over at
BBC.
That's right, and that's where you that's where you taught me about the Smoky Jackrabbit, which is a mezcal drink. That was after the press conference. That is because it was.
I didn't teach him about. I said let's have this mezcal flavor, this mezcal drink, and it's just
so to the point we knew about Pepi then, as he signed with North Texas and then made his way up the chain.
Yeah, but you know what? Before then, Ryan, I didn't know really much about Ricardo Pepi. I think the only reason I would have heard is because, he was having some success at the academy. But that day at the press conference, I didn't know he was going to be until a few minutes beforehand, until we were there and found out 30 minutes before it was officially announced that he was going to be the first player signing for North Texas. So, but obviously, especially for FC Dallas and that period of time for the club, given the academy and the performance of the academy and the success of those players. Those were always very, very special moments when Paxton did something or Jesus did something or Ricardo Pepi did something. To call those were, all the great moments that we've shared are special in their own way. But when it's your homegrown guy, then that has a lot of meaning to it.
Just a couple more to go, and the last one I'm really excited for. But before we get there, Andres Ricarte, this one is iconic. I think when I think of your calls for the club, this is the one that comes to mind first, and it had to be in the list for sure. Here we go.
Sends it in the direction of the back post, headed down by Hedges. Hara, edge of the area, scoops it in front. Away by Figueroa, farther away by Houston. Now off the volley. Oh, what a hit! Welcome to Dallas, Andres Ricarte! Golasso gives FC Dallas the lead. You got the 2 clearances by Houston, and bam!
Look at Marco Maric, the goalkeeper there. He barely moves. He knows he's beaten. What a shot. Oh, look at that angle.
I think the highlight package sort of rudely cut you off there, but welcome to Dallas, Andres Ricarte. That one will always stick with me.
That's on the list just because I think in my time doing games with FC Dallas, unless I'm missing something, I don't think there's just been a more sensational individual golazo than Andres Ricarte there against Houston. Obviously, Velasco's first goal and the length of the run that he had in that play was really special and a great finish. But those are bangers, as they like. That's a certified banger right there. And we didn't have a whole lot of those, but that to me is the creme de la creme of just great individual moments by an FC Dallas player when it came to goal scoring.
Absolutely, and this is the one that I was teasing, the penalty kick shootout, the highlights from it. That was against Minnesota United in the first round of the playoffs in 2022. A nice cold night at Toyota Stadium. You actually shifted over to the radio booth. Why don't you set the scene a little bit before we play this one?
Oh, well, I mean, the crazy thing about that scene was that I had to work a Mavs event that night. It was like a season kickoff luncheon, so we had an 8:30 game. So, Steve was on standby to do play-by-play if I got caught in traffic getting back from that Mavs event. But I rolled in at 8 o'clock. But as you guys remember, it was 1-1 after 120 minutes. Steve, did Velasco score the goal in regulation?
It was Quignon, I think, if I remember.
It was Facundo Quignon. That's right. He didn't score many goals, but damn, he scored some big goals in his time.
Only the important ones.
And I think that, what stands out to me about leading up to the shootout for that game is it's a 3 versus 6 matchup. They'd had such a great year under Nico. Look, Nico did a masterful job, not just of tactical soccer coaching, but I thought he did so much to rebuild a beaten down psyche of the club from a really bad 2021. And I thought, really did a great job that year simplifying things. They added some really important talent. And so it's all of a sudden you go from 2021 being a very, very difficult season to, 2022, not only is this team good again, but this team has got a real chance to do something special. And then you're playing Minnesota, who you'd had a good history against. They were kind of an unknown, Steve, when it came to the playoffs, because Minnesota had been around, but they hadn't really burst onto the scene as a playoff performer with a lot of big moments yet. They've been in the playoffs, but they hadn't had their big moment. So I go into that game thinking, they've got this. And then, I remember your part of the analysis that night, Steve. So, you said the team's playing like the moment's too much for them, especially in the first half of that game. It's kind of how I remember it. And I remember, you talking about the team was just playing nervous and a little bit intimidated by the moment, and they managed to salvage enough of a result to put themselves in position for this penalty shootout that we're going to talk about.
Well, they were playing nervous, and as you recall from there, it got them the next week because what we're about to hear, they escaped it, and this time. And then the next time, the first 20 minutes against Austin were pretty much a disaster, and they actually played better in the second half and almost came back from that one too. But it was too big of a hill to climb. But for this one, well, I'll let you guys know.
120 minutes have been played. FC Dallas won, Minnesota United won, and my friends, penalty kicks are coming. This will all occur at the south end of Toyota Stadium in front of a sellout crowd. Now Captain Will Trapp, he's quickly stepping back. He's going to get on with this quite quickly. Trapp backs up straight away. This will be a right-footed attempt. Pass saves it! Pass saves it! Pass saves it! A dive to the right by Martin Pass. It's now 4-4, and the last attempt is Alan Velasco. If Velasco converts the PK, FC Dallas will win the shootout 5-4. Alan Velasco, with his right foot, he backs up 5 yards. The whistle blown by Ted Uncle. Velasco standing, still standing. Now here's his run up, and Velasco, Panica goes in! Panica goes in, and FC Dallas will move on to play Austin on Sunday night. cheeky was that? They are Austin bound with a little bit of panache, I would say, with 2 Panenka penalty kicks in a shootout won by 4 FC Dallas.
A little bit of panache and a lot of drama. How about this, though? FC Dallas now, over the last 3 years, have had 2 penalty kick tiebreakers. They have not missed one yet. Woo! Well said.
Was that my
With the
woo or yours? I
woo
couldn't
in there
tell.
at the end.
Well, I think that the great broadcaster Russ Hodges of baseball fame, of the shot heard around the world, Bobby Thompson, 1951, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant. If nothing else, Russ Hodges, I think, has taught us all, play-by-play guys, that in big moments, if you just say the same thing over and over 2 or 3 times, that's always a good part of it. So I think that's why you got Paz saves it, Paz saves it, Paz saves it, because it was the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant. So that was a really fun night, and we kind of talked in the setup of what made that such a great night. But look, let's face it, penalty kick saves when you're in a shootout. I mean, anytime you watch it around the world, in whether it's a Champions League final or in a World Cup or another big continental competition or anything like that, I mean, the reaction of the goalkeeper, the reaction of teammates, the reaction of crowd, the devastation of the penalty kick taker and the other team, those are incredible moments when the goalkeeper steps up and does something big. And so, obviously Martin Paz did something very, very special there. And of course, nothing's more cheeky and more risque and daring than a Panenka. And I guess the first person I think of that did that in a big moment Alexis Sanchez did that for Chile in like one of the Copa America finals, where I think he had the winning PK attempt on his foot in a shootout and finish it off with the Panenka. So when you do that, man, you've got a pair. Because if it goes wrong, then you really got a lot of egg on your face. But fortunately,
Yeah, unfortunately, as we may have found out this season, it's not as fun when it goes wrong.
It's not, but it did. But it went right that night for Alan Velasco, and sadly, to Steve's point, I mean, look, when you've made it that far, you can start saying, "Why not us?" And it's a shame that things didn't go a little bit better to get. It's unfortunate. Starts to games, as you guys know, you can lose it early, or you can put yourself in too much of a hole where it's very, very difficult and not realistic, and so. Yeah, it's a shame things turned out the way they did the next week in Austin.
What's cool about going back and reliving those moments is when you notice something that you hadn't noticed before a while ago, like you said about the near post run. Maybe you hadn't seen that before. I've heard that call because I think we used to use it as one of the intros on some of the radio broadcasts. But what I never noticed before, Mark, was that right before Velasco gets up there as he's still standing, man, the crowd is saying it is quiet. Like you hear, I just noticed this. Like there's a little there's a roar, then a murmur, then another murmur, then, dude, it was quiet in there.
I think there's when those things happen, and I think broadcasters around the world do a good job of this. Sometimes people, look, I've seen media critics writing out there that they don't necessarily like whenever. They show shots of people watching the game, but I think that's great, man. And especially what happens in a penalty kick shootout, and you're talking about this global sport. You're talking, and it's in so many countries around the world where you have a Latin American population, Hispanic population that's predominantly Roman Catholic, and so people are praying, and like that to me, that is such a great part of this sport. That you're in that moment, and the reason why it gets quiet because people are like, number one, they don't want to be a distraction, and number two, a lot of people probably at that point are calling on the higher power that they believe in for some divine intervention to make sure that they win, and that's just part of the great passion that exists in this sport. And obviously, all sports have their own unique passions, but there's clearly something special about this game.
Yeah, and I think that actually leads me right to my next point, is that all 6 of the moments that you picked came in home games. I mean, those those are the special moments when you get to really interact with the crowd at Toyota Stadium. And, I was impressed with even some of those, 2012, 2015, just how, loud and rambunctious the crowd goes. Obviously, it's a last-minute winner. This is the moment when you sort of lose your mind and go crazy. But they were loud, and I think it was cool to see you play off of that energy.
We have a great, we, FC Dallas, have a great fan base and always have. And that goes back to 1996 at the Cotton Bowl. And Steve, covered those games for the Dallas Morning News at the time and can vouch for that. And, one of my most special memories is the TIFO that the gentleman did for me and Steve at the last home game against Sporting Kansas City in 2022 with the headset microphone. And thanks, Mark and Steve. And that just, that meant, indescribably meant so much to the two of us because of the great fan support. I mean, when you're the voice of a team and you're the analyst of a team broadcast, you connect with the fans. People invite you into the homes, and that's I truly really do think that despite the fact that the club has had its ups and downs, there's been a lot of great moments along the way, and fan support and reaction tell a story behind all of those moments. There's a great fan base for the club that's been there for a long time and been through some, again, good times and bad times. But I think we see in all those good times what a passionate fan base FC Dallas has had for a long time.
Why don't we take a quick break and step aside, and we'll be right back with some more Mark Followill after we've gone down memory lane. We'll talk about what he's up to these days with Apple TV.